Welcome to your Money Matters show, your weekly show on Tuesday with Ripondre. This week, we'll be talking about a number of things for you. We'll be talking about money and the challenges you get when you have problems with it, and your credit card and loans, and how you can seek advice when there are challenges. And of course, sometime to make it easier, we have a guest who'll be guiding you through the process through his own experience. And of course, on the second half of the show, we will be looking at PPI and what happens when you have been missold a product by a lender or a mortgage lender of any sort, or all sorts of consumer credit lenders. We'll be going through it with you and try to explain to you what it means. But of course, before we start with all the show, let's think about Your Money Matters show. Welcome back on Your Money Matters show. Yes, again, this is your weekly show. So, according to Step Change, which is a national charity that gives advice to members of the public, according to them, over 140,000 people that they have given advice, every single one of them in 2017 had debts related to essential bills. To clarify what essential bills are, I mean they're unable to afford to pay things like their gas bill, their electricity bill, and they're unable to pay their council tax. And according to Step Change again, the reasons no doubt are many, but they say is due to low income, due to young people who can't afford to pay, or not receiving enough income because their rent and the renting sector is insecure, and of course through which leading to them getting into arrears. So clearly, when you have a problem like that, first thing we need to think about is how do we deal with it, and what are the causes behind it, and of course, is there any support available? If there is, where and how do you get it? So to help us with this, we have in the studio Neil Worrell. Hi Neil, are you in the studio for me?
Hi, Rupin.
Neil, thank you for taking part in the studio. I suspect it's a difficult moment because clearly, when it comes to financial difficulties, people find it quite hard to express themselves or even talk about it. What do you think might be the cause behind it?
Well, there's a bit of a stigma with debt, which affects people. They feel a bit awkward talking about it, and they don't know where to turn to for help. Fortunately, I found Tomby Hall in Europe, and as my debt advisor, have helped me greatly deal with the debt that I'm in.
So, Neil, clearly, the process of getting into financial difficulties, is immense. But from your experience, you weren't always in debt, were you?
No. I had a good job for 10 years doing property management here in London, and I thought that would be a job for life, and I would just, if that job ended, I would simply find another job. But it didn't turn out that way, and for various reasons, I had to look for a career change. During that time, I had to receive Universal Credit when it was introduced to Fulham, where I live, as one of the pilots. So I've been with Universal Credit from the start, and it's not a terribly good experience.
So when you say you had financial trouble, is it linked with Universal Credit or any other?
Well, that came about really because of the job market at present. I had to go and retrain, and it's taken time to train as a education advisor, and I'll finish that next week and hopefully get an employment. But the debt came about from the time I had to take out to cover me while I was looking for work. So I was going to do security work just to have an income.
Yeah.
I went and trained in that, but I didn't know that that was insecure, very insecure work. And I was still reliant on Universal Credit, even though I was willing to work full-time or more than full-time, 40 to 60 hours.
Yeah.
I wasn't given the hours regularly, so I didn't come off Universal Credit.
So at what point, did you feel that, okay, this is beyond my control?
Yeah, it came to a point where I was paying large amounts of money each month back simply to cover the interest of the debt I had with a credit card, which was just paying for me to get back into work, travel fares, food, just your normal essentials. So I've forgotten the question.
That's fine. I mean, when you say, at what point did you realize that you were
So
having
the point
struggles,
was, when I was
having
paying,
problems?
it was too much for me to pay back each month. I was keeping on top of it, and it just reached a point one month where I realised that I had to seek help, and I just knew of the Citizens Advice Bureau. When I phoned them up, they were really busy and they would take a number of weeks, but they gave me an option of approaching Toynbee Hall, which I did, and they saw me quite quickly at Toynbee
So I suspect when you say Toynbee Hall, it's a charity that give advice in the East End of London, is that right?
Yeah, that's right, East End of London, where I sought debt advice. That was my first point of contact, and I got very good, excellent help on the day to approach the company, the credit card company, and get assistance.
So, I mean, psychologically, just before you sought advice, what were you going through?
Yeah, I was a mess, because we've all seen the documentaries on TV. Where there's all these extreme cases, debt collectors coming emptying your house. You don't know what's going to happen, and if you don't know, you can imagine all sorts. So I was very stressed. And as I say, I wasn't sure where to turn to. So I needed somebody who knew that, you know, how to approach this and have an action plan, which is what I got from Toynbee Hall. Self-ripping was an action plan to deal with it, and that's what we've done, and I'm still using the action plan now, and it's very effective.
So, I mean, clearly you had the action plan and I supported you in the process, but in terms of the creditor, I mean, we're talking about a credit card here. I mean, obviously now you may look at it and say, okay, this is just a credit card, but when the credit card companies were actually writing to you and you're thinking, oh my God, what do I do? I mean, what sort of responses were you getting from the credit card company?
So they would, obviously I hadn't made the regular monthly payments, so asking for that, and as I say, at that point it was okay. They didn't there wasn't a load of letters coming, and I did nip it in the bud quickly by contacting Toynbee Hall and getting that help within a month. So by the time the next payment was due, so I only missed one payment, if you like. So there wasn't a denial, and I was recognising the debt, so they were actually happy in this case.
So really what you did, and the great thing about the way you dealt with it, is by, rather than kind of letting it go, you actually decided to kind of seek help there and then. Now, do you know what would have happened if you had not
So if I had just let it go and I had been in denial and ignored the letters coming asking me to contact them, then I'm not sure what would have happened. But because I was ignoring the debt, then they might put debt collection agency on. I don't know what scenarios might have happened.
So what stage are things with you right now then?
So we settled the debt, and for a year we agreed to pay an amount that I could afford, a small amount I could afford from Universal Credit. After that year, the debt was sold on to a private company who have continued to take that small amount as my circumstances haven't changed. So although that's settled, I don't know what might happen from month to month, because I might get a letter asking me to clarify what my income status is. And I'm aware of that, and as I move into employment I have concerns about what proportion of my income might be taken to start paying off the debt, and that's where I get the advice again from yourself, Rippon, and Toynbee Hall.
Now, I mean, what would you actually say to those who take months or even years to seek advice? Because there is a data which shows that on average it takes 2 years for people to seek advice. Now, if someone is struggling, what would you say they should do?
Well, what I'd say they should do is what I did, just recognise that you're in difficulties. There's no stigma, there's no shame. Millions of people across the country are in the same boat, especially with the job market the way it is, and with austerity cuts for the last 10 years. So go and get help from Citizens Advice Bureau, Toynbee Hall, if you're in London, or a local agency that can give you help, guidance and advice on how to deal with any debts you have. They'll look at the big picture. They will assist you with information on websites where you can self-educate yourself. Or they will phone on your behalf to the company or companies involved, and you will reach an agreement on something you can afford. It could be as little as £1 per month. and until your circumstances change, that
Yeah.
agreement will be accepted,
Yeah.
and you can review it
Yeah.
after 3, 6 months, etc.
So, I mean, what does £1 token offer mean to the creditor and to you?
But it means that you've agreed.
Hmm.
You're not denying you have the debt,
Yeah, yeah.
and you're still making a payment towards paying off the debt. So I guess that's good for the company, and it's good for me because it's what I can afford at present.
Yeah.
If I get an increase in income through work, I'll review it and I'll
Yeah.
pay more and just try and pay the debt off as quickly as I can.
I mean, and what, let's say, if your circumstances do not change, then what will you do then?
So I'll just continue on as it is at present. Hopefully it will change soon
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm retraining, and hopefully
Yeah,
I'll get work soon, and I'll be able to pay it off
Yeah.
for myself.
I mean, so Neil, I mean, you actually had a previous career. I mean, do remind me, you work with the military.
Yeah, well, I was in the army.
Tell us more
when
about
I
that.
left college, and did a number of years serving as a soldier, electronic
Yeah, yeah.
technician, which I had a great time.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
thing is, I had a reasonably good salary
Yeah.
then, and really I have done most of my
Mhm.
work in life, and it's only recently
Yeah.
when I've found it hard to find work
Mhm.
that pays around the national average
Mhm.
of 24 to 26,000, I guess.
Yeah.
It's pretty much average. It's just in the recent 10 years with all the austerity, the gig
Yeah.
economy, and all the impact that's had
Mhm.
in dropping expectations of salary down towards the minimum wage
Yeah.
for the vast majority of people in this country, sadly to say. And I don't see that changing in the future.
Mm.
The universal credit is frozen, but the cost, as everyone knows, of food in the shops, of
Yeah.
transport every year, that shoots up, and all the other bills, council tax has gone up, and
Yeah.
all your other bills. So people struggling, and the income they have to cover even essentials
Yeah.
is being diminished year on year. So it's very hard for people to survive. I myself, I've gone to food banks
Yeah.
for help when I've had to, and I
Mm.
would recommend again other people not to be
Yeah, yeah.
too shy and going and getting help when they need it.
I mean, if we just went back few years, there was no such thing as food bank, but we have seen now how food banks have literally sprouted like mushroom. So, I mean, so when it comes to food bank, then at what stage did you realize that there is a need for me to go to a food bank?
Again, when you do the simple
Yeah.
mathematics of what your income
Yeah,
is
yeah.
and what your outgoings are,
Mm.
which is what the exercise I did with yourself when I came
Mhm.
along and asked for help, we
Yeah.
did income and outcome,
Mhm.
and there's just a little money left, enough for
Mhm.
me to go out, attend job interviews, looking for work,
Mhm.
and not really enough to provide food on the table.
Yeah.
So I have to go to food bank, and there you can network and get information on help
Mhm.
with debt and other things, as well as the food. So I went there, and I was happy to go there, and we have a great community food
Yeah.
bank in Fulham where the people are very respectful and
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you go there, what do they expect from you? What are the rules for going there? Do you need to
Well,
take
the
something
rules
with
are,
you?
you have to go to an agency. It could be
Yeah,
the
yeah.
job centre, your doctor, Citizens
Mhm.
Advice Bureau, will assess your needs, the reason why you need a food bank voucher. There's vouchers
Yeah.
that you need to access the food bank,
Mhm.
and then you'll go maybe once a month when you're desperate
Yeah, yeah.
to get food to survive, and they'll
Yeah.
help you with a parcel of food.
So, and for how long do they give food for? How long does it last, the food?
The food's just emergency for
Mhm.
3 days,
Okay.
emergency food supply,
Mhm.
and it's not every week. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
There's only so much to go around,
Mhm.
so you're expected. It's like 3 times in 3 months is what you're expected to have needs for, and then you
Mhm.
should have arranged something else somehow.
I mean, according to Trussell Trust, that oversees food banks throughout the country, and they themselves have said that within 12 months of implementation of universal credit in different areas, there's been an increase by 53%. And if you, where the places they weren't, we're talking about something like 13%. And clearly, you mentioned something about universal credit and how that has contributed to people going to food bank. So why that might be from your experience?
So from my experience,
Yeah.
that's what happens when you move on to universal
Yeah.
credit. It's badly administered. This has been recognised by Universal Credit Organisation itself. They're trying to recruit and train enough staff
Yeah.
to cope, because as we know, they're rolling it out across the country, area by area,
Yes.
over the years.
Definitely.
But yes, there's things that can stall and stop you receiving universal credit. It could be not providing documentation. There's no one you can meet face to face in the old style of doing things, which was
Yeah.
at the job centre. So you just have to wait. And if you haven't got money coming in, you've
Yeah.
got rent arrears stressing you out because you can't pay the rent, because universal credit covers both your rent and all your other living expenses, instead
Such
of the
as
benefit.
personal, job seekers allowance, employment support
Yeah,
allowance, and
yeah.
housing benefit.
So that's lumped into one. But if there's a hiccup, and there is often, there was for me, then that delay means that you have to go to a food bank. How else are you going to get food? I mean, you can only rely on friends and family to there's a limitation on that. And it's great that the food banks are there. But they are there because universal credit. Sometimes there's delays, whatever, and you don't have an income. So you need to eat still.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, did you encounter any problem with universal credit? If you did, what sorts?
Sorry?
Did you encounter any forms of problems that you're talking about with universal credit and your claims?
Yeah, you put the claim in, and they take, at that time, it was up to 6 weeks to assess it. And the details, it was very difficult to do online, to do for the first time, to understand all the questions they're asking. It's quite complex,
Yeah.
And I'm quite computer savvy and pretty able and understanding of these sorts of things. Even I found it difficult, and I'd answered a couple of questions incorrectly, so I was told. So I was back and forth to Universal Credit, and they can't always answer the phone. In the early days, you could just wait up to an hour and they don't answer the phone. And you had to pay for the calls at that time. They've since changed it. So it was very difficult to engage with the organisation to find out what you need to do so they could assess your universal credit and get it into payment. So it was 6 to 8 weeks before I got my first payment, which is a couple of months, So that was very difficult.
That's when you went to food bank.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who say that, yes, of course, there are problems with the administrative side. The other thing that I personally have also noticed is that sanctioning under universal credit is much greater. In fact, 4 times the amount compared to, let's say, under old job seekers allowance. Why do you think it might be the case?
Because you used to have an advisor that you would meet face to face in the job centre. Now you have to do it online. Not everybody is comfortable with using computers, and it's all computerized now. And people, if they don't do the commitments that they've agreed with the job centre person, they see, and that's put onto the universal credit account. These are 2 different entities, the job centre and universal credit. If they didn't understand what their obligations are on the universal credit website, when they have to input the information, they can, just by pure mistake, not put down the actions they're taking to look for work. So they're doing all the correct things, but they're not inputting the correct information, because nobody trains you, nobody shows you how to use the universal credit website. You have to figure it out for yourself, and that's where people fall down. They come onto universal credit off of job seekers allowance. It's all online, it's on the phone, there's no paperwork, letters coming back and forth. And during that adaptation process, they can be sanctioned through no fault of their own. They're actually doing all they've been asked to do and agreed with the job centre advisor, but they're not able to transfer the information onto the computer in the way that is deemed by universal credit to be, acceptable.
I mean, in order, clearly, if you are finding yourself in one of those who's been sanctioned, I mean, there are ways you can challenge sanctioning. Do you know what that might be?
So if you've been, I've not been sanctioned. So
Okay, I mean, in terms of sanctioning, clearly, listeners, you do need to know. I mean, if you've been sanctioning, you have the right to challenge their sanctioning, especially through mandatory reconsideration. Sanctioning in this case, where either they stop your benefit for act or omission that you may have or you haven't done, and they might reduce your benefit that you get, or in fact they completely stop it. And obviously, it is a decision made by a representative of Department of Work and Pension. In that case, you do have your right to challenge them, and I will urge you. So, in the context of appeals and challenges, the obvious one, no doubt, will be mandatory consideration. There are other processes which may not be an obvious one. Now, a child poverty action group are very much looking at cases that are of public importance. Clearly, if you want to get in touch with them, I suggest you do that online, and they themselves are looking at interesting cases that they more want to review through judicial review. That is basically taking the case to High Court and challenging it. But because these are specialist cases, and for that you do need to seek advice. So Neil, in terms of from your point of view, looking at, I suppose, let's say, ways of addressing universal credit. So how do you manage the money? Because knowing that it comes once a month. Now, clearly, it's for many. I mean, I would find it difficult knowing that I have to manage the money that I get, or where I get my rent money, my personal allowance that I myself have to deal with. But how do you budget then when you get your monthly universal credit payment?
So it is like having a salary, but it's not much of a salary because it's a benefit. Yeah, but it's the same principle. You have your outgoings each month, so break it down. Yeah, and minimize any luxuries, if you want to call it that. Yeah, and just have the essentials. Know what you're paying out each month, know what you're left with, and then you have to budget with a small amount for the essentials of food, travel, and whatever else you need to do in your endeavours to seek for work. Or if you're not able to work, then you have to budget and just live on what you have.
Have you requested GWP for alternative payment arrangement?
Is that for paying the rent, is it?
Exactly. So basically, the Department of Work and Pension has other options. Not many people know that, and they avoid telling you as well. Where if you think that the current payment whereby you pay monthly is just not suitable for all sorts of reasons, you can contact DWP and say something like, look, I don't think this is appropriate because my landlord wants me to pay my rent on a monthly basis. Clearly, in that case, you have to think about another way of paying. Now, I've come across a number of cases. Yes, you can change it. If you don't want to get it monthly, you can request for it to be paid on a weekly basis or fortnightly. It does depend upon obviously specific circumstances. There is no one size fits all, but as Neil said, by default it is going to be on a monthly basis, and then it is like a salary that you get. And what will also happen as you start earning, which Neil is very keen on doing, and will be no doubt dealing with it then. But it looks like in the meantime we seem to have a caller who generally is interested in speaking to us. Hello, are you there? Hello? Hello? Members of the public? Okay, clearly we have missed the caller who is wanted to make his or her input. But obviously, Neil, so in the context of universal credit, what would you be actually saying to members of the public when they are having problems with such a measure, such a policy measure?
Well, they have got a complaints procedure on the universal credit account that you have. You have an advisor allocated to you, a virtual, if you like, advisor. So I have done that myself. I escalated a complaint to the top of the system when it had been so dysfunctional. It was having severe effects on me by them just getting multiple mistakes, which was affecting them, their ability to pay me the correct amount of universal credit. And hence me paying and it would stop me from paying my rent. So I got the Housing Association involved, and we did get a satisfactory outcome. So there is a complaints procedure online that you can follow, taking it up with your online advisor in the first instance, and if you're not happy, escalating that.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm glad you've actually raised the appeals process again and again and again. But in terms of clearly with you, it's also about developing your confidence, isn't it? Developing your confidence and develop the ability to also move forward. So because you're
So I understand universal credit, and
Yeah.
the principle's good that if you
Yeah.
move into work and it may not be a stable amount of hours each month, and it can fluctuate, so you can stay. But I think it's designed because many people are on these very low incomes,
Yeah.
and they need a top up because rents are so astronomical in many cases, especially here in London.
Yeah.
So they're still reliant on universal credit, even though they're in work. So they're the
Yes.
in work poor, if you like. That's the new phrase that's been bandied
Yeah,
about in the last
absolutely.
number of years.
Yeah.
So they're going to be reliant on universal credit. So you've got to get to know it, and you've got to learn how it works. But
Yeah.
it can be useful in work because it is flexible, and you can receive part universal credit top up to your income if you're working 10 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours, or just 0 hours contracts.
Yeah. Well, what can I say? Neil, I am very grateful for you sharing your story.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you very much, and I hope you can come in the show as often.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
good.
of course, the more people talk about issues like money and universal credit and debt, it will help people to realize that there is help available.
Well, I think the more
Yeah.
we talk about universal credit,
Yeah.
and the more open about it, and we share information. That's what I'm doing here. So thanks
Fant-
for having me. Yeah?
Thank you,
Okay,
Neil. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Thank you.